Welcome everybody to our meeting on the 18th of March. I open the meeting at 7 p.m. I will pass on to our Chief Executive Officer, Alison Beckwith, who will read out the formalities.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome all to this ordinary meeting of Council. As the Mayor indicated, that's better. Thank you. I'll start again. Welcome all to this ordinary meeting of Council. My name is Alison Beckwith and I am the Chief Executive Officer here at Banyule. Tonight's meeting is being held in person in accordance with the provision of Council's governance rules and the Local Government Act 2020. The meeting is also being live streamed via Council's website and Facebook page. The live stream is not interactive, so for those at home, any comments or private messages directed to us while the stream is live will not be presented to the Councillor group or have any bearing on the conduct of tonight's meeting. Council request to speak methods do continue to allow participation of our residents without them having to attend meetings in person. Just to take you through some of the rules for public participation during the meeting. Public questions time will occur at the conclusion of tonight's meeting. If a member of the public who has submitted a question is present, they are welcome to read their question as submitted or have their question read out on behalf of a member of staff if they would prefer. If the resident is not present or the submitter has requested to be anonymous, the question will not be read out. All public questions and responses will be included in the meeting minutes following tonight's meeting. No statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. A 2-minute time limit applies to anyone that is requested to speak tonight on an item on the agenda. The timer will be used and a warning will sound at the 1.5 minute mark, and we do ask you to sum up at that last 30 seconds. We ask that members of the gallery please check your phones and ensure that they are either switched off or on silent mode to avoid disruptions. We also ask that members of the public are reminded that we have a zero tolerance for bullying, harassment or violence at these council meetings, and everyone needs to be respected. Everyone present in the gallery, community members, council staff and councillors are expected to respect the individual views of all others, irrespective of their own views held, and respectfully participate in tonight's meeting. I would also like to ask if any members of the public depart the chamber while the meeting is still in progress. We ask that you please do not hold conversations with others until you're outside the building. Noise from the foyer area, both outside the chamber and downstairs, does reverberate up into the chamber and impacts on the live streaming. So we thank you in advance for that. I will introduce the councillors in attendance for tonight's meeting, and I'll start to my left. We have Councillor Peter Castaldo, Councillor Fiona Mitsonikos, Councillor Peter Dimorellis and Councillor Alison Champion. And to my right, we have the Mayor, Councillor Tom Melican, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rick Garotti, Councillor Alida McKern, Councillor Elizabeth Neely and Councillor Mark Di Pasquale. Tonight we also have our executive management team. We have Mark Gilio, Director of Corporate Services, Natasha Swan, Director of City Development, Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services, and to the left, Joe Wilson, Acting Director, Community Wellbeing. Tonight, Council is supported by a number of staff, including our governance and IT teams, and we thank you in advance for participating tonight. Enjoy the meeting.
Thank you very much, Alison. I'd first like to acknowledge the traditional custodians. Our meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Wurrung people, and on behalf of Banyule City Council I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians, and would also like to pay my respects to any Wurundjeri Wurrung elders past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge the other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders that may be joining us today. And our diversity statement. Council is committed to the values and diversity within our community. We will now read that statement. Our community is made up of diverse cultures, beliefs, abilities, bodies, sexualities, ages and genders. We are committed to access, equality, participation and the rights of everyone. Principles that empower, foster harmony and increase the wellbeing of an inclusive community. Apologies, we have none. Leave of absence, we have an application for Councillor Mitsonikos. Has applied for a leave of absence. She will be declaring a material conflict of interest when that is arisen. So I would like to seek a motion. I'd like to ask Councillor Mitsonikos, would you mind leaving the meeting? If you'd like to declare your conflict, yes?
Yes, I'd just like to declare I have a material conflict of interest as I stand to make a gain or loss dependent on Council's decision to grant my leave of absence and must therefore not participate in the discussion or vote on the matter. Thanks.
Thank you. And the motion is on the board. Can I ask a councillor move? Move. Councillor Neely, seconded. Councillor Di Pasquale. I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. Can you ask Councillor Mitsonikos to come back, please? No. Oh, you don't want to go. Thank you. You got your leave, thank you. So we'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held at Council on the 26th of February. Can I have a councillor move? Move Councillor Demorellis, seconded Councillor Neely. I'll put that to motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Disclosures of interest. There is one disclosure of interest from councillors. Councillor Garotti has advised he will declare a general conflict of interest for item 3.3, the awarding of the contract, supply, installation and maintenance of new and existing paid parking. Councillor Garotti, you have a conflict of that item and you'll be leaving the room. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of interest from staff? There are none. I'd like someone to move a procedural item that we consider a general item of business prior to any other agenda items. The reason for this is I acknowledge and reflect the current crisis and the conflict in the Middle East. I'm proposing that all other items of general business be read out at the conclusion of the meeting as per the ordinary custom and practice. In order for Council to bring forward a particular business item, general item, I am calling for a procedural motion that Council permit that an item of general business acknowledge the current crisis and conflict in the Middle East be brought forward to the start of the Council meeting before officers' reports are considered. Move Councillor Castaldo, seconded Councillor Neely. All those in favour? That is carried. So we'll now read a general item of business concerning the current conflict in the Middle East. Over the past few months, Council has acknowledged the conflicts and crisis that has been felt and experienced around the world and the various recent world events that have caused distress and disharmony for many. We deeply empathise with those suffering, experiencing pain, and those who have personal, family, cultural and religious connections to the regions in the world where these events have occurred. We continue to acknowledge, stand in solidarity and hope for peace and harmony across the globe. And on behalf of Council, I want to formally acknowledge today that we stand for all human rights for all and that we are appalled by the loss of life in many parts of the world right now, acknowledging that all lives are inherently valuable. We note the joint statement made by the Prime Minister of Australia, Canada and New Zealand that was issued on the 15th of February 2024. stating, among other things, the protection of civilians is paramount, is a requirement under international humanitarian laws, and call for the immediate humanitarian ceasefire, and a negotiated political solution is needed to achieve lasting peace and security. We acknowledge the long and enduring conflict and trauma in Palestine and Israel, and this pain resolves deeply worldwide and within our community. And what we mourn not only is the horrible loss of life in both Palestine and Israel, but also the other conflicts in and between states around the world. We recognise that these events are traumatic in many Banyule residents, including those who have relations or connections in these regions or come from war-torn countries, and we express our sympathy and grief for these communities. We also recognise that we are a diverse, multicultural, multi-faith community, and that racism, vilification and discrimination of any types have no place in our city. And we do not tolerate statements and speech that incite hatred and aggressiveness, including anti-Semitic and Islamophobia. We are a proud multicultural city, and we are strong because of our diversity and respect of differences. And our highest priority remains the promotion of peace, coherence and tolerance of differences in our community. We will make every effort to encourage the de-escalation of tension and promote social harmony, and will encourage everyone to demonstrate respect for others, to one another during these turbulent times, and respect the rights of peaceful protest and the freedom of expression. In my role as Mayor and on behalf of Banyule Council, I will write to and advocate to the Australian Federal Government, the Australian Prime Minister and the Australian Foreign Minister to show our support for the Federal Government's call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire and the pursuit of a permanent ceasefire that will bring just and lasting peace and the observance and stability of peace in the region. To ensure that assistance for those who arrive in Australia after fleeing the conflict, equitable access, including equal access to food, accommodation, employment, health service and mental health services. To call on an unconditional release of all hostages and for an end to the conflict in Palestine and Israel. Urgently support humanitarian aid in those in need and advocate for a safe and unimpeded humanitarian access to the people of Palestine and Israel. Urge all parties to respect safe places and protection under the international humanitarian law, including hospitals, schools and places of worship. And urge all parties to uphold the laws of armed conflict and the Geneva Convention. And I'd like to thank Councillor Castaldo as the Chair of our Multicultural Committee for helping to assist in putting these words together. And I thank the Council for the indulgence for allowing to lead that, but I think it's an issue that we can ignore, and we needed to make a statement. So thank you for allowing that to happen. We'll move on to urgent business. There is no urgent business. There are two petitions. The first one is Parramatta Avenue, Lower Plenty, unsafe parking restrictions. There are no speakers to this item. I did note the author of the petition spoke at our budget briefing session. So I look for a councillor to move the motion. Move Councillor Champion, seconded Councillor Neely. Would the mover like to speak?
I will, Mayor. Thank you for this. First of all, this is a conversation that has been going on with me for many months now. So I would like to thank the petitioners for their research. They've invested much time researching this bend in the street, as well as the opinion of their neighbours. I would also like to thank the officers for considering line marking and other safety features at this bend, so very much appreciated. Just want to make it known that this is the third of the three bends. If you look at the diagram in the report, it's the third of three bends which is untreated. yet it's the sharpest of all the three. The other two have larger angles and they have safety treatments. They also allow for better vision of the road as you are driving or walking. So I obviously very much support this petition, and I do agree with the residents' arguments that this is an unsafe bend without such safety treatments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
It was covered by Councillor Champion. Happy to accept the petition.
Would anyone else like to speak? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 2.2, Sherborne Road request for improved traffic management near Adam Crescent. A petition. There are two speakers. John Smith. Is John available? Welcome, John. Would you like to come forward? What was your name then, sir?
John McGregor.
John McGregor, sorry. Oh, you're down to speak twice then, John.
That's right. So thank you very much, Mayor. So in recent years, the eastern end of Sherborne Road has become extremely busy, with 2 lanes of very heavy traffic in each direction for several hours of the day. And the governance lady has kindly handed a sheet to each of the councillors showing half a dozen photos that illustrate the problem. So it's become very challenging and dangerous to get out of Adam Crescent, and requires driving techniques used in India, where you have to guess which of 2, 3 or 4 lanes of traffic will let you through. So we took a petition on the problem to 55 residents in Adam Crescent and Gordon Grove a few weeks ago. Everyone had safety concerns and they were all very eager to sign. They were very keen to find a solution, and we discussed that with them. Mostly they prefer a pedestrian traffic light which is also activated by side traffic entering from Adam Crescent. And the photos show examples of that later. So there are 2 main problems. It's very dangerous to cross Sherborne Road, for example, to go between the 2 bus stops, and that's photo 1. You can see 2 lanes of traffic each way and a bus coming along. And several residents forbid their children from crossing Sherborne Road to catch the bus to school. And those children are only permitted to catch the bus home, as that avoids crossing Sherborne Road. Second big problem is the great difficulty for cars to turn right out of Adam Crescent. This can take up to 10 minutes and it requires 2 lanes of drivers to offer to stop. Then you must wait in the middle of the road, see photos 2 and 4, until another gap appears. So we're all keen to have a solution as shown in photos 5 and 6. Photo 5 in nearby Bolton Street shows a similar situation, which was solved by a pedestrian crossing which can also be activated by cars entering from the side street. We note that this crossing is near the location of a fatality in the 1980s of a schoolgirl trying to cross Bolton Street. So it's a similar problem to Sherborne Road. And almost finished, photo 6 shows a similar solution to a problem in Tram Road, Doncaster, of a traffic light also activated by the side street. So the petition requests a safe solution for this dangerous traffic problem. So thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you for the... 1 minute, John, could you take a quick question? This is the border between us and Nillumbik. Have you spoken to Nillumbik Council about their...
No, we thought we'd try this council first. I know it's a complicated problem. Some of the residents who signed, they've tried 10, 15 years ago to get some action. They spoke to Vic Roads or RTA, I'm not sure, and they decided there wasn't enough traffic back then, but I think there's plenty now. But the one in Bolton Street's also on the border of Nillumbik and Banyule, so somehow that problem was solved in that case, so I hope you can find a similar solution.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor, if I may ask a question of the Speaker.
John, would you mind taking another question?
The recent Bolton Street upgrade, but it was done a few years ago now, was this part of that conversation to help?
I don't actually know. The pedestrian crossing there is fairly recent. whereas this fatality occurred way back about 1985. So I think they probably someone had a memory of that occurring.
Thank you. Are there any questions from councillors? Look for a councillor to move. Councillor Champion, second Councillor Neely. Comment?
Thanks, Mayor. Again, I would like to thank the petitioners for being in touch with me. Again, it was a few weeks ago that one of the residents came to me and suggested this. And I've just guided the residents through their correspondence, and we have come to today. So I really appreciate their initiative for contributing to safer roads and pedestrian access on our busy roads. I, for one, don't even try to turn right anymore coming out of Adam Crescent. It's not an option anymore. It's just a left-hand turn, and if I want to turn right, I'll go around the roundabout at Retro Road, very slowly. Just reading the report, 1.4 kilometres is actually a long way to walk if you have mobility issues, and if you don't need to actually walk all that distance to get from A to B. Knowing the bus stop is just across the road from your street should make a public transport journey short and safe and not longer. I personally regularly hear the expression, where has all this traffic come from? My answer to that is we have an increasing population that's not going backwards. There are a lot of people coming into this area. They will continue to come into this area. It is very popular. They love the trees and the space. They're not going anywhere else. Drivers from 17 years old, L-platers, to over 80, and there's more than ever in the past. More than ever people are driving. There are more people choosing to do this. We are living longer. We're able to drive if we want to. And accessibility to cars as a household product, in other words, there are a lot more second-hand vehicles around that we can possibly purchase. These are all the reasons why we have a lot more traffic. Like I said, I don't even try to turn right, I just go left. So this is ongoing, as was mentioned by our speaker, since mid-80s, late 80s. This has been a conversation. We are now, 30 years later? Conversation is reignited, and we really need to look at making this intersection much safer for our community, and I welcome our residents of Adam Crescent and Gordon Grove on the journey. Thanks very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, strong advocacy is certainly needed on this. It is very difficult to cross this road, and earlier last year, maybe mid-year, we received a petition on a different part of Sherborne Road with about 100 residents regarding crossing of that same road. So it is definitely an issue. We're listening and we are aware of all the complications of the area, the increased traffic, the increased development, and yeah, happy to accept this petition. It hasn't come as a surprise. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It's disappointing that these pedestrian issues and access issues weren't sorted out in around 2018 when the Bolton Street upgrade was taking place. I mean, it's just around the corner there. I mean, why this wasn't on the table at that time is very, very disappointing. So I'm happy to receive this petition tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. You actually wonder whether the Bolton Street upgrades added to this problem, given that it's now more possible to turn 2 lanes turning right into Bolton Street, and without the capacity of Bolton Street increasing, but certainly Bolton Street was upgraded and people were encouraged to turn right into Bolton Street off Main Street. So, and as it's been stated here several times, that the population has increased and so has the number of cars. Did you want to have a right reply, Councillor Champion?
I would, if that's all right, thank you. You asked the question, Mayor, earlier about getting in touch with Nillumbik Council. So informally I met, I happened to see Councillor Jeff Payne from Nillumbik Council, Wingrove Ward, last Thursday evening at the Pauline Toner Awards. We had a brief conversation. I did let him know, first of all, that this is an item coming to Council tonight, so he's aware it's an item for the meeting. He may be watching, he may watch it on replay. And just to advise him that this is something that's becoming that's going to be coming to a conversation, and we would like to be in a communication with him and Nillumbik Council about this as well.
Thank you. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you, John, for your presence tonight and your input. We'll move on to the awarding of the contract for tree planting and establishment services. We have one speaker, Marianne Newton. Marianne, welcome. It's nice to see you.
Start again. I'm here on behalf of Friends of Darebin Parklands who support tree planting in Banyule, and we're encouraged to see that Banyule is considering a large investment for planting 3,000 trees, and hope that this investment will provide multiple benefits by enhancing biodiversity and community wellbeing as well as amenity. In 2023, Banyule funding to the Darebin Parklands supported our friends to successfully establish 15,000 plants. That's 10 times the number of plants for a fraction of the cost, and I mean a tiny fraction, providing exceptional value for the public investment in the Friends of Darebin Parklands through the funding to the DCMC Parklands Division. We ask that you remember this exceptional value in formulating and approving budget allocations beyond June 2025. Not only is it exceptional value, it also provides added value. Our plantings have many benefits beyond amenity, creating important habitat for the creek and an oasis for the community, building community connectedness, promoting community wellbeing, promoting nature immersion and physical and mental health and wellbeing. We look forward to participating in open and timely consultation regarding the Darebin Parklands as promised at the October 23 Council meeting. We're concerned that this consultation has not occurred yet, and this concern was crystallised by the lack of appropriate direction within the recently released public realm strategy with relation to bushland, reserves and the creek, the riparian areas within Banyule. You've got some seriously special places in this council area. We also ask that the Darebin Creek Management Committee independent audit review be released to help with the transparency of those discussions and consultations. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Marianne, and we'll get back to you about those
thanks,
questions
Tom.
you have asked.
Appreciate you've just
Through you,
answered
Mayor,
it.
I'd like to ask a question.
Oh yes, Councillor McCann.
The Speaker mentioned public consultation and the crystallisation of public consultation around the Darebin Parklands. I'm just wondering, through you, whether the Director of City Assets and Services might respond to that question.
Through you, Mayor, the matter before Council at the moment is about tree planting. It's not about the consultation for the Darebin Parkland. However, that full plan is being finalised and will be shared with stakeholders in the next, probably, I would suggest the next 4 weeks or so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Marianne, and thank you for your efforts in the Darebin Parklands. Much appreciated. So we'll move on. I'll call for Councillor to move the motion as printed in the papers. Moved Councillor Garotti, seconded Councillor Castaldo. Comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to support the recommendation to appoint those preferred suppliers to the panel. We did interrogate with officers why others weren't included. And we were satisfied with the analysis and response provided. But I think it's just important for the community to know that we go through that process and then we just don't sit here ticking a box. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that. Comments? Seconder?
I'd just like to reiterate, we do a lot of due diligence on this, and it's really important that we have assurance that we can deliver what we say we're going to deliver, and therefore we've got 3 providers of this service and making sure that we do deliver. So I'm comfortable with the recommendation, and I look forward to the very important work that these three businesses have, local businesses, have to do for the next few years for our city.
Thank you. Further comments? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.2, the Advocacy Progress Report. We have one speaker, Michelle Jarvis. Welcome, Michelle. President of Friends of Banyule and current reigning Citizen of the Year.
Is that the right button? Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of Banyule, and we support the Advocacy Progress Report, especially advocacy around the North East Link project and the detailed 31-page submission to NELP, which highlights the inadequacies related to the northern end, which is particularly harmful to Watsonia and residents, and has issues regarding transport access, Watsonia station access, shopping centre access, and the massive 10-lane trench all remain issues. The North East Link advocacy remains ongoing, but it needs to be stepped up, because although meetings have been held and discussions commenced, Council has not achieved what it set out to do and foreshadowed. Namely, we need a better design, covering of the trench, better pedestrian access to Watsonia Station, improved health and safety for residents all along the route in the city of Banyule. We are dealing with unbelievable noise pollution, dust and vibration, light pollution, etc. That is impacting the health and well-being of residents without adequate care from NELP or the project contractors, and without appropriate notice or respite care. Recently, there have been serious issues along the M80 impacting Bundoora residents and works around AK Lines Reserve and Grimshaw Sea. What can Council do? Also, bearing in mind that this is a short-term traffic solution that encourages car use, and that traffic numbers on Rosanna Road will return to pre-project levels within 8 years of construction. So I guess what I'm asking Council is, we welcome what's happening to date, but it's not enough. It's falling on deaf ears, and our residents' health and well-being is suffering, and the number and places of impact is just expanding.
Thank you. We hear you and we understand.
Beg your pardon?
We hear you and we understand.
Well,
we will continue to advocate.
Well, maybe we need to protest outside the hub, like what our friends outside are doing.
Thank you, Michelle. Question, Councillor Champion?
I have a question of the Speaker, please.
Michelle, would you mind taking another question?
That's okay. Thanks, Michelle. I've just got a question. You're obviously aware, you're very all over what we're doing at Council, yeah? What's missing for you? So I know we've had a bit of a laugh about protesting outside the hub. What's missing? So I know that our officers, or we know our officers, have done an enormous amount of work to advocate to the state government about this project over the years, and it's clearly not enough. So what's missing? What have we not done that we'd love to hear about?
I definitely think that I know I've been lied to by local members, and so that there is a lack of accountability from our local members, and that's in relation to direct conversations with impacted people, and ensuring that there is appropriate notice of works, that there is appropriate respite care, because people have to fight for it, and it's substandard, or with very little notice, or the accommodation arranged is unsuitable because they might have pets or too many people to fit into the space. So there's not enough genuine conversations happening. And I go to the CLG meetings, and I wanted to get some transparency about the number of complaints that are received, so to see if the number, because as the project scope and works increase, do the number of resident complaints and business complaints increase? And NELP tends to hide the data because they say well, they split it up into the northern part of our end and the southern part of our end, and then they might say, oh, we've got 50 complaints over, the last 6 weeks here, but we've got 150 inquiries. Now, those inquiries are basically 75% of them will be complaints, but just the wording is, oh, what are you doing about the dust? And it might be couched in a more general term. But if a person bothers to ring up the 1800 105 105 number, they're not ringing up for a casual conversation. They're ringing up to say, what are you doing about the dust? It's all over the road. It's impacting my health. And I have people sometimes that write directly to me or that are forwarded on to me where they're just in dire straits about not being able to sleep.
Michelle, sorry, apologies to cut you short. Without the detail, we're talking about advocacy priorities. So just clarification, can we stick to the point?
Well, I guess the advocacy needs to be about complaint resolution, and it needs to be about accountability between NELP, the project managers, and the contractors. And tends to be a loss of accountability because you're dealing with different parties and you're dealing with a number of different contractors at different stages of the project. So that people are lost.
So that's the state government and their bodies dealing with.
But I think also the council could be doing air monitoring and showing the dust levels to NELP, so that we have environmental health officers, that they could be working. I mean, I think sometimes NELP are genuine about their monitoring station, but for instance, the monitoring stations are in the wrong locations to pick up the dust.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I think that'll be enough.
Okay, lovely, thanks.
I can go on from
that.
that.
No, that's okay. I appreciate that.
Really?
So then I've got to ask, how do our officers go to our local members and accuse them of being inaccountable or they're showing a lack of accountability? And you mentioned the word lying. This is not your question. This is a question to us. How does council, you're suggesting that council does air monitoring and dust levels, is that within our jurisdiction? Mayor, is there someone who can answer these? Is this a responsibility of council, or has council actually pushed as far as it can and just starts to repeat itself?
We're within our powers to do those things, but I'll get Natasha Swan to respond if you...
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I guess in short, the council could undertake its own independent monitoring. There's certainly a balance between the obligations resting with NELP as the project manager and their obligations for compliance with legislation, and we'd need to be cautious about how much we stepped into that space in terms of our ability to be able to show information, but we don't have any enforcement powers to do anything with that information, which is a bit different. But certainly if we felt that there was an absence of compliance, advocacy would be our first path, but we certainly could commission technical measurements ourselves if we felt that was something that wasn't being responded to. I would be hopeful if we brought to the attention of the authority the gaps as we saw them, that they would respond accordingly.
Thank you, and I can assure you, Michelle, we do raise these issues constantly with local members and also with the project teams and the major projects department and within the government as well. So I'll now look for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Champion, seconded Councillor Castaldo. Comment?
Just very briefly, thanks, Mayor. Thanks for coming in, Michelle, and speaking tonight. We are aware that you're very passionate about this, along with many other residents and business owners along this part of the project. Council, we know council officers do an enormous amount of work around advocacy towards state, for any project, any idea. I've actually sat in on meetings with Anthony Carbine's MP, with Vicky Ward MP, Colin Brooks MP. I know we sit there and we go through, here, these are the things we would like you to advocate for us. This is what we need to do for our community. Many, many, many times. So I am asking our community to please understand we do a lot of work for you. There is only so much that will be listened to. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Castaldo.
I'd just like to acknowledge the significant work that goes into advocacy. One of the key roles of our council is to do advocacy on behalf of our residents. We've got a very strategic plan here, and in the attachments, if you have a look, that we've done work on a whole range of issues, electrification, transport, and the role of advocacy isn't just for our mayor and our CEO to negotiate, it's also to enable us as a group of councillors to know our core focus areas that our community are asking for us to do work. And I've been active in that space, and the Greensborough Transport Hub is one of those areas that absolutely needs the spotlight put on it, because our state government isn't listening, they're not listening to their own strategies, and we're trying to make sure that it's aligned with all of the integrated planning that's necessary. We need to put community housing in important areas. And when the state government lets our community down in that role, it's our role to try and advocate for our community. There's a lot of other areas in there that are really good, environment and all the other areas. And I encourage you to have a look at all of the key things that we do advocate on for our community. It's a very important piece of work, and a number of us will be going to Canberra to further advocate to our federal members on a range of issues that are in here as well. And it's absolutely essential tonight. We've got people outside looking for us to advocate. There's a lot of areas, so I'm very supportive of this, and we're getting some good work in some areas, not all of the outcomes we're looking for, but it's a responsibility, and I commend Council for moving forward in this.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. One of the priorities in the advocacy strategy is the Watsonia train station upgrade, and I understand that you and the Chief Executive met with the Honourable Colin Brooks to discuss that. I would certainly appreciate a briefing back, a proper briefing to the councillor group on those discussions and where the state government is at, because that is a massive gap at the moment in that community, but certainly also a big opportunity. And that's something that I know this council is committed to, but I'm certainly very committed to it as a councillor as well, to see significant railway works occurring, to see the North East Link being upgraded, the substantial work that this council's doing, and with funding support from state government for the Watsonia Town Square, to leave that station there as is would be enormously disappointing outcome, I believe, for the community. So I really welcome the fact that those discussions have occurred, but I would appreciate an update to the council and on what we can do to further that with the state. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to reiterate some of the comments made by my fellow councillors. I think everyone's actually presented strong comments for advocacy, which shows the strength of advocacy in this council. Of course, local level advocacy is essential to the issues of our local communities' concerns, and we can't go it alone. Councillors spend a lot of time advocating and hearing about potential advocacy matters from our community. As has been previously said, advocacy is a core element of council delivery, particularly to state and federal government. But we do rely on community members really highlighting what is important to them for us to know what our priorities are. And to that note, I would like to thank our community for the suggestions, recommendations and the persistence they've put in. Our speaker tonight embodies the level of persistence required to get change happening. So ongoing persistence and keeping advocacy matters alive is really vital to achieving success. I know that in Chelsworth Ward, the access to Ivanhoe Station, particularly for people with disability and access ability issues has been a long-going issue, and it's one that we're constantly advocating for. And it's work that's often done behind the scenes, and it is happening, not just through individual councillors, but also our councillor leadership through the Mayor and Deputy Mayor. So to that end, yes, advocacy ideas and feedback from yourselves as our community in a constant manner is important to us councillors. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to cut what I was going to say in half because it's been covered already. I think it's important to note that we keep the ball rolling and we don't drop the ball in relation to advocacy. Things change from week to week. Sometimes you can feel that no progress has been made, and then later down the track, you know, your voice is heard and some funding is provided. So it is important for the community to see what progress has been made, and it does change, and I am hopeful. We need government funding to support our infrastructure. We need the funding to support our programs, and we need to be clear that all our applications, all the work that the officers have done have all of Council's priorities at heart. So the gender impact also lens I wanted to mention just shows that Council has a deeper understanding on what the community needs, and I think it's important that the work continues. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Further comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.3, awarding the contract supply, installation and maintenance of new and existing car parking meters. Councillor Grotti, you have declared a conflict. Would you mind leaving the chamber while this matter is considered?
Do I need to make comment on it? It's a general conflict just related to the fact that in another organisation I'm on a tender panel regarding car parking.
Thank you. We have one speaker for this item, Melissa Matthew-Webster, who's speaking against the item. Welcome, Melissa.
Good evening, councillors. I just find in regards to this one a concern in regards to the budgeting. I just want to have some kind of confirmation that when the first term comes to, we don't end up seeing another doubling of the budget that's allocated to it. But I think more importantly, I don't understand why we really want to add more car parking pay stations when we haven't fixed the public transport issue. So you've already covered some of the issues that we have in the preceding agenda notice. We should be putting a lot more effort, I believe, in making it more accessible for people to get around on public transport rather than putting in extra parking meters. And also in the extent that these parking meters are put in, I believe there still should be an option for cash. So the agenda item looks like that it's reducing that option, and I think that that should be something that is maintained for existing meters. Going along with all other things that have been discussed this evening so far, there is more urgency in trying to get the roads right, get the public transport right, before we start digging into the pockets more of our residents for paying parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Castaldo.
I've just got a question for the relevant officer. Is this contract will this effectively increase the number of parking meters, or is it for the service provision of existing?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. This tenders the supply of the machines that we have for our existing paid parking machines. So presently I believe there's in the order of 63 paid parking machines dotted around certain parts of the municipality. They're certainly not widespread across the city, and they tend to focus in areas of high public use and demand, particularly around our hospital precinct. The tender's purpose is these machines have come to the end of their useful life. They're a redundant technology, and these machines will replace those, but there isn't any proposal through this resolution to expand the number of paid parking machines. The tender, however, would accommodate, should council resolve to increase the ability to use this as a supplier to provide those machines.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor McKern.
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to ask a question of the Director of City Development. In terms of our metered parking machines, what amount of revenue does council generate from those? And where's that revenue invested?
Through you, Mayor, I'd have to take that question on notice in terms of the total revenue, but I can advise that the revenue returns back to our general income. We do have some reinvestment of that in additional parking investment that we do in some of our centres, but I would have to take on notice the total amount of that income.
Thank you. Further comments? I'll look for a councillor to move a motion. Moved, Councillor Castaldo, seconded Councillor Di Pasquale. Comment?
Yeah, it's an important issue that you mightn't think about, that a lot of people in our community actually ask us to make sure that there are times that are allocated to spots in our community to get turnover of vehicles. I actually get more complaints about not enough turnover rather than people being fined. So that's an interesting thing to consider. I didn't think that would be the case when I came to council, but I think this goes to providing an effective, easy way for people for us to maximise the amount of parking availability where it's needed in Banyule, and I'm comfortable with the advancements of this strategy through this provider.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, just to comment that some very interesting points raised tonight by our speaker, and speaking to many members of the community with regards to parking meters. We really haven't had any installed for the last, I don't think we've had any installed since COVID, as far as I'm concerned, or from what I remember. I think there was years ago, and I'd probably be saying 10, possibly 12 years ago, we had very few parking meters, if any. I'm happy to stand corrected, but then we had a concerted effort to put them in appropriate areas around train stations and transport hubs where people were parking the whole day, and just to try and increase the amenity by creating some income from those car spaces. Because effectively the community pay for them anyway. They pay for those car spaces. So they should be able to get a return for them. But yeah, since COVID, there haven't been any extras, and there's nothing really on the horizon to increase them further, because we haven't really been in discussions with regards to increasing areas of parking meters or new meters. Likewise, the cost of parking too has not gone up over recent times as well. I think COVID has put an end to that. We're trying to encourage as much transportation as possible going forward, so we're definitely not going to just be using these as outright revenue raising, which we could be quite easily accused if we just put them everywhere and charge inappropriate amounts. So I think we have the balance right. This is just a new contract for keeping the service going. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor McKern.
Mayor, I'd like to foreshadow an amendment should this motion not carry with respect to a review of the revenue from paid parking meters and scope to invest portion of that revenue in active transport actions for our city. I think the Speaker raised a very pertinent point that we could possibly act on. So in the event that this motion isn't carried, I would like to put forward an amendment.
Further comments? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. Could Councillor Garotti please... against, sorry. Councillor McKern, you're against. She's against. Thank you. Could Councillor Garotti please be returned? Thank you. He won't be long. We hope. Thank you, Councillor Grotti. We'll move on to item 3.2, Banyule Cemetery Trust Operational Report. There are no speakers. I'd look for a councillor to move the item. Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question to the relevant officer. Is the trend that's in the report towards ashes interments over burials, is that due solely to our lack of space in our cemeteries?
Would governance have an opportunity
I'm happy to provide a response. Thank you, Councillor Neely, and through you, Mayor. There is a graph in the papers that demonstrates that over the past few years there has been, I guess, an increase in the number of cremated remains. There is no real data to verify this theory. I guess we're just hypothesising, if you like. It could be because there are more memorial positions available for interment of ashes, and there are no further grave sites to actually purchase. The only burials that can take place are in existing grave sites. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? I'll look for a councillor to move our motion. Councillor Champion, seconded Councillor Grotti. Comment? No comment? Councillor Grotti. Any other councillors like to comment? I'll put that in the name of Councillor Champion. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.5, Banyule Cemetery Trust financial statements. There are no listed speakers. Look for a councillor to move. Councillor Grotti, seconded.
Sorry, Mayor, I was hoping to move an amendment to point number 3, that the basis for the good result is primarily due to more burials on ashes, interments, and less expenditure than budgeted. Thank you, Mayor.
Move Councillor Grotti, seconded Councillor Neely. Councillor Grotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just in reading through the financial statements, it appeared that the variance was due to favourable result on expenditure and not income, as was indicated in the officer report. So we raised those queries with officers and that's been confirmed. One of the notable variances was with regard to interest income, where the earnings on interest have been significantly lower than budgeted. We queried that as a group of councillors, given that the cash at bank is relatively stable for the trust and interest rates have been relatively predictable, at least around the time of when the budget was set. So we've asked for some feedback from officers on that as part of the development of the budget for the trust for the next financial year, because this is an entity that we've inherited from state government and it does run at a loss. So we need to be very crystal clear as a council on its financials so that we can then be transparent back to the community about those risks and implications. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.6, local government reform, response to the consultation. We have one speaker, Alicia Curry. Welcome, Alicia. Alicia is speaking against the recommendations.
Good evening. I'm speaking against, but I think it's a bit irrelevant whether I speak for or against because this report has already been submitted on the 28th of February. So I've got to speak to what I'd like you to do on top of the report that you've submitted. And what I want to speak about firstly is the Sandon Report recommendations, and I've spoken about the Sandon Report numerous times previously, and I don't think that we received a proper explanation as to why Council didn't adopt all the Sandon recommendations in relation to local governance, and I wonder how that was impacting the report that's going into these local government reforms. So I would like a bit more information, please. I would also like to give support to a couple of recommendations as part of the councillors' personal disclosures, and that firstly that they disclose the affiliations to political parties as part of their statement, and during their term as councillor, so not just when they stand for councillor, but while they're in term as a councillor, that they or remain as a councillor as to any political affiliations. And second to that, I'd like it a statement in the personal disclosures of the eligibility of councillors to be in a position of councillor. After my understanding is that we have at least 2 councillors that are not anchored in Banyule and have multiple places of residences, and some might be coastal and I understand some might be interstate. And I think that statement of those residences needs to be in the personal interest disclosure, because it's important to the public to understand whether we are getting the best from our councillors and you are making decisions in the best interests of the local municipality. Thank you.
Would governments like to comment on the Sanders report and the recommendations we have in?
Yes, thank you. And just to your point there, the Operation Sandon recommendations that were released in August had 35 governance and planning recommendations. Most of those actually require legislative reform and are impractical and impossible for a local government agency to make those changes. The changes that we were able to make, we have put in force, and that relates to the way we take the meeting minutes and some of the conduct in council meetings, such as the use of en bloc motions. It's probably also important to note that we're still waiting for the Minister to respond to the full 35 Operation Sandon recommendations. The Chief Municipal Inspector really did raise the bar and say that the Minister needed to set an interdepartmental task force to implement those recommendations and for a year to respond. So we're just waiting now for further information and legislative reform and feedback from the sector about what is appropriate and best practice so that we can follow good governance guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grotti, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just through you to the appropriate officer. But typically with reports of this nature, they would come to council first before going on to being submitted to the relevant authority. Just seeking guidance as to why that didn't occur on this occasion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Good question. And through you, Mayor. Unfortunately, the Minister for Local Government gave the sector 4 weeks consultation period with our council meeting timetable and the rigour and robust approach that we took to the response. We were unable to actually get it to a council meeting before the submission date, and we really wanted to be able to get into the submission date and provide our feedback accordingly. So that's the reason why we're retrospectively noting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? I'll look for someone to move a motion. Moved Councillor Grotti, seconded Councillor Castaldo. Comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I always thank you to the Speaker for their comments on this matter. Thank you to our Governance Manager for pulling together what I thought was a very comprehensive response, and feedback and input was sought from the Executive and from councillors. And we participated in that process. It's always ideal to be able to take these things through to the community, particularly because of the richness of input that we're able to draw on from the community. Organisations such as the Banyule Ratepayers Action Group, Good Governance Banyule, just to name a few. I always appreciate being able to hear from our community on these items, but as Officer Kirsten pointed out, the timing didn't permit because we're only, as a sector, given 4 weeks. So we've done our best, but in the interest of transparency, bringing this back to the community. And I think that what we can do is scoop up some of the feedback tonight and any subsequent feedback that there may be from members of the community. And I know that the Mayor and the CEO are in regular dialogue with the state government, and I'm sure that we could feed back anything further that comes from the community, and I would certainly encourage that. Thank you, Mayor.
Further comment? Councillor Castaldo.
Yeah, I'd just like to also acknowledge the governance team and Christian for the significant work that went into the response for council. Because it didn't come to council doesn't mean we didn't have extensive consideration and time trying to consider the best information and put forward to the minister. I think we had briefings, we had collaborative documents, we had significant time to discuss it. We did do a lot of time trying to ensure that we are abiding by and doing the best governance for all decision making that comes to council, or even discussions that come before we come to council. So I'm very comfortable with the recommendation tonight and the submission that was made on behalf of council.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mayor. I find that some of these reforms are reasonable while others require further consideration as they appear more punitive than effective. As the MAV rep on this council, I attended a meeting with Councillor Melican as the Mayor, and we discussed issues across all the councils in Victoria about what they were experiencing, what their thoughts were, and it's not an easy one-size-fits-all solution. I think that early intervention is key in addressing governance and conduct issues. I understand there's room for improvement in the sector, as there's been 11 different monitors appointed to local councils in Victoria since 2020. However, I do hope that the sector has further opportunity to provide feedback on the draft regulations and particularly to address many concerns. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor De Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you to our speaker this evening. The comments are quite interesting. I think with regards to being a councillor being a political party member, I would take it a step further and basically say that no councillor should be a political party member. It would effectively be a conflict of interest if we look at it in perspective that if I was a member of a club or a group or a local community organisation and I was part of their whether it be the president or secretary or even a member, and they have there's a budget submission from that organisation, I would have to look to declare a conflict of interest because they could benefit from that budget allocation, etc. So if I didn't declare a conflict of interest, that could be quite dangerous on my behalf if it's ever investigated. Yet we can have members of parties being councillors, and then let's not forget that the 2020 Local Government Act supersedes the 89 Local Government Act, which was rushed through, as far as I'm concerned, in 2020, which, if we remember, is COVID time, and it just gives the state government the avenue just to filter down policies, procedures, etc. through the local governments to the community. So local government is an arm of the state government. And I've been finding it quite striking that probably the last 2, 3, definitely 4 years that the frustration that the community has with regards to state government involvement is quite high, and I don't see it going away. So there's going to have to be a fundamental change about how the governmental system works. So yes, I understand those comments tonight, but I'd be taking them, steps further. That's for sure. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.7, property transaction report for the period ending 29th of February. There are no speakers. Look for a councillor move. Move Councillor Garotti, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment? Councillor Champion, no comment. Any other one like to comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item the award of the contract for the management of the operation of Watermark Banyule. There are no speakers. I believe there's an amendment to this recommendation. Move, Councillor Garotti. Could you move your alternate recommendation?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll be moving a deferral of the item, but I believe there's the proper wording that council defer the item to the next council meeting in order for the Chief Executive to meet with the preferred provider regarding their overall value proposition. So moved.
Moved Councillor Garotti, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I think this is a good example of the work that council does when tenders are provided to us as a group. From what I understand, this is the single largest contract for this council. And we've just reviewed the paperwork and the documentation and just suggested to the Chief Executive that there may be some opportunities around value proposition, contract management, and other pertinent factors that we would appreciate being attended to before this comes to council for approval. Thank you, Mayor.
Would a seconder like to speak? Any other comment? Councillor Costello.
Yeah, this is a very important contract for council. I would have liked to have seen it move forward. We've had extensive conversations about ensuring that there is good value for our community in moving forward and giving the contract. But in light of the conversation and paying due respect to Councillor Garotti's role in Audit and Risk Committee, I'm very keen for him to explore all opportunities to make sure that we get absolute best value for our community through this contract. So I'll be supporting this tonight.
Further comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.9, record of council meetings. There are no speakers. Look for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Champion, Councillor Mittenukos. Comment? Comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 4.1, Advisory and Population Committee reports, November 23 to February 24. There is one speaker, Kevin Cavan-Hill. Welcome, Cavan. Would you like to come forward? You have 2 minutes to speak.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'm going to bang on about the things I always bang on about, and that is whether the culture of having deficit budgets and the need to pull our financial heads in is flowing through to these committees. When I read through some of the comments, particularly in the attachments, there seems to be some dreamtime largesse that we can afford a whole bunch of things which we clearly can't. So I've heard a whisper, for instance, that they've proposed, or committee members have proposed, that as volunteers they should get an increase in their sit-down money across the whole spectrum. Now, that may not be a true rumour, but I hate to think that someone's putting their hand up at a time of fiscal restraint and saying we need more money as a volunteer, which just doesn't ring true to me. During a previous item, we talked about the politicisation of councils. I haven't done the research, but I just wonder if we did, how we would understand the political stacking of some of these committees, and whether there are philosophies and political agendas being driven down through those committees which are coming to you, which are then being made recommendations which need to be funded and considered. So I would raise that as a concern. The other question is why we need so many committees and whether we couldn't consolidate down to 4 instead of 8. I'm sure if you capitalise all of the time that's invested in running these committees, councillors' time, which is paid time, it would add up to a large sum of money. So I'm just going to leave some of those questions hang and hope that the council will reflect upon them. Thank you.
Thank you, Cavan. I would say, though, the committees are very well run, very efficient, and also we get the benefit of many expertise and people that have been leaders in their fields volunteer their time to assist council in performing their duties. So I think we get enormous benefits out of these committees, and I'd encourage you to join some, Cavan, if you don't.
Are they your comments, Mayor, on the item?
So, any other comments on the... We have a mover. Could we have a mover, please? Councillor Costello. Councillor McKern, comment?
Yeah, just like to, look, I haven't acknowledged the speakers tonight. I should. Thank you for your contributions. It's all important, and so are the contributions of those on these committees. I have the honour of being able to chair 4 of them in this last little cycle. Just want to report back on some of the important conversations that have, because everyone in our community has different interests and different things that are important to each of us. And this is really important work for us to capture the different interest groups in Banyule. And Reconciliation Action Plan, our First Nations committee, they were really interested in First Nations employment opportunities. That's a really important issue to them, and so was the Latrobe National Employment and Innovation Cluster, to make sure that the Aboriginal First Nations knowledge and participation in that was important. On the Age Friendly Committee, we were really a real good conversation on Sport and Recreation Plan was had about how we can participate in sport and the options available to us when we're older and living in Banyule. Some really good conversations happened around that. When it came to the Banyule Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee, we spoke about public art policy and the public realm design. Some really good suggestions from our creatives in Banyule, and I think they've got a lot to offer us when it comes to the commons. And in the Multicultural Advisory Committee, we spoke about the importance of Harmony Day. It's a really important issue to our residents, and that's a wonderful event that I'm really excited to see expand and will be hosted at the Town Hall here this coming year. But the deeply felt and important issue on this committee was around the Gaza-Israeli issue. And we had people that represented those from Palestine and also those from Israel or of Jewish heritage. And this was a deeply difficult conversation in this committee, but it was so important to them to have it heard that our council acknowledge the importance of this issue. So I'm really grateful for our council to speak on the subject tonight, and on behalf of those community members, I'll have a chat with them and share what statement we made tonight. And everyone in Banyule is different. We all care about different things, and I think I just wanted to highlight a few of those important things. It doesn't always cost money, these conversations. They're very cheap, but we're making sure we're focused on the important things to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor McKernan.
Our advisory and population committees. This is my going into my 4th year of working with them, and my assessment is that they are actually an invaluable touchstone with our community, particularly given that community members that are drawn to this committee usually have specialist skills and experience pertaining to the committee in question. So what we're doing here is we're actually drawing in specialist skills and experience from local residents who want to make a contribution and want to use their skills and experience for the betterment of Banyule. And when you think that there's essentially one meeting a quarter, it's not a big impost. It's not a big impost on resources, and it's not necessarily a big impost on volunteers' time. And it is a voluntary role. People elect themselves if they want to get involved. I've had the honour of chairing the Banyule Climate Action and Environment Committee, and I've been very impressed by the input and the level of interest shown by our community in contributing. We only have 2 more meetings for this term of council, and I would encourage our community, if they want to be involved, to get in touch with staff or councillors and see if there's a place available, just so that you can, particularly if you just want to see what it's about, and come along and see if it's for you. We welcome you, and I think they make, as I said, a very positive contribution to the strategic work that this council produces. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll put that. All those... Oh, Councillor Grotty, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to make a couple of brief comments. Look, great work done by Councillor Castaldo, chairing 4 of those committees. And I think also too, just paying full respect to the volunteers who give up their time to serve on those committees, and to respect the contribution that they make. I had the privilege of chairing the Disability Advisory Committee for a number of years and really respected their contribution and the time they gave up, particularly parents with children with disabilities, and we know how precious their time is. But I think that our speaker raised some pertinent points. I've certainly raised them before, and I know other councillors have. I think the next council will be in a position to review the committee structure and to look at whether there are some opportunities to do things differently, potentially better. There is a sizable resourcing involved with the committee. I just did a quick back of the envelope. If there are 8 committees 4 times a year, that's 32 meetings a year. There's about 10 to 15 people per committee, and there's about 5-hour time commitment for each individual on those committees. Now, I worked out back of the envelope, that's about 50 person hour, 50 days of person activity per year in the city of Banyule. Now, is that value for money for the officers? Is that value for money for the community members? Is there a way to do things better and more efficiently and to maximise the value of their time and contribution? I personally think there is, and I think that there'll be an opportunity, hopefully, for the next council to look into that. But otherwise, happy to note this report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor De Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, over the years, the advisory committees have been very valuable to this council and previous councils as well. We did actually originally have 4 advisory councils, then it was increased to 8. Now we have 12, and then the newly inclusive Banyule Advisory Committee, which is supposed to be an overarching one. So there's quite a significant increase in numbers over the last, say, 10 years. And they do cost a lot to run them. They cost a lot of officers' time. These meetings are held outside of general work hours so that they can attract people who are working and have their input as well. And unfortunately, to have meetings, you know, officers' time, writing up reports, etc., it's very expensive, or can become very expensive. So that being said, we did keep it quite contained to, okay, let's try and manage the officers' time. Of later times, we have now moved to remuneration to members of the committees. It's a small remuneration, but it is still there. Whether it increases or not, I don't know. Other councils have them significantly higher, so if we just follow their lead, it will go higher. And what it does is it throws out the idea of having volunteers who join these committees because their heart is in it. What they do is they then join it because, yeah, okay, you can get something out of it. You get some money, or you get some, get something out of it. So effectively, it borders on a group of consultants rather than grassroots community members in our community advisory committees. So it's a topic or a conversation for a new council. I'm sure they'll be having it robustly, and we'll see the outcome after next year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mayor. I must admit I'm a bit disappointed that we're speaking about resourcing rather than the report in front of us, which is about consulting residents. And community is at the heart of council, and these committees involve the community, involve their perspective. There are other ways you can do that, through a survey, but this is that ongoing follow-up that council has with the community. I thank previous councillors for thanking our volunteers, and I also like to thank the councillors for putting their hand up to be on these committees, and the councillor role on these committees, the population committees, is to listen and hear what the community have to say. The council staff that come to the committees provide a non-biased presentation on council strategies and council policies to be considered by committee members. A lot of time is taken into this, as already mentioned, and it allows the people in our community to pick up any discrepancies that council may have, or to raise an emerging issue as the community's at the coalface of things day to day. So, you know, some of the policies that were reviewed, which council, it's about just rubber stamping in a way from the community that council's on track, like the 100% backing of the creative Banyule strategy. So, you know, the committees and the presentations by staff, the community gets that presentation that councillors get in a briefing in a very same way. And that allows for more transparency rather than political influence. So I might add that you don't have to be part of a political party to have a political view or a political preference. Sorry, I've gone over time. Thank you, Mayor.
I should have cut you off a little bit earlier, perhaps. I'll just make a few comments here. I accept what people are saying, but I've been on all the committees at some stage or other, and I particularly remember the arts and culture, and not being from an arts and certainly not from any cultural background. I really appreciated my time on that, and the environment committees, you certainly learn a lot. So I think as councillors, it's a wonderful opportunity to learn from some very well-educated and people that have an enormous amount of background and been employed in many different roles that we can benefit from. So I really appreciate the committees, and I know Jo and her team put an enormous amount of effort in. Some of them are run during the evening, but some of them are run during the day as well. So it's not an impulse on a greater impulse on officers' time. So I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 6.1. I'm sorry for the people that might be waiting to. We should have moved this up earlier in the agenda. I'm sorry, but it's good to hear people can hear what councils deal with at our meeting. So the next item is 6.1, the public order review. Dogs and cats in public places. We have 8 speakers. Our normal governance rules specify that we have 3 for and 3 against, but given that people have taken the effort to submit a request to speak, and some of the requests will be read out, I think we should agree that we'll allow all people that have requested to speak. It is an important issue. I would point out it is only going out for consultation, but it is good to get consultation going straight away. So our first speaker, Melissa Murphy-Webster, will address the council for 2 minutes. Melissa, you are speaking against the review.
Thank you. I'd only came across my desk on Friday, so I wasn't aware of it, and I didn't have time to go through all 19 pages, but there was a couple of aspects that really did concern me. Being a dog owner, this is how I first initially met Councillor Garotti, was with regards to my pet and my dogs in particular, and that's how I first started engaging with council. So in regards to the domestic animal management page, the components that I just want some extra, I have a problem with, is that the dogs are going to be restrained further than 5 metres away from playgrounds and barbecue hygiene. Now, for hygiene reasons. Now, I know this is probably going to be not a favourable reasoning, but to me, humans actually tend to be much more disgusting and unhygienic than dogs. And if we went by that, then we shouldn't let anyone near those places. The other thing is they want to change, or considering changing, the recall from 75 metres to 15 metres. I do agree that 75 metres is very generous, but 15 metres is unreasonable, especially when you've got a dog that is very well trained, and that's the whole idea. You wouldn't have an untrained dog off the lead and not being able to recall it. The consideration about sports fields for them not being permitted on there, I was wondering whether it would be something that council would consider putting towards some funding to allow, not for the clean-up, but to somehow get in process for the clean-up to make sure or monitor it a little bit better so people are more responsible. I think one of my concerns, though, I'm going to not have time for the cat part of it, which is not as important as my doggy part, but I'm a dog person. I've been paying rates for 20 years. I didn't know about this. Why is that? I saw in there 760 online submissions, which, how did that? I walk my dog every day. Sorry for overtime, but I walk my dog every day, and not one other dog owner that I know knows about this. So if you can text me as, say, pay your bill, pay your rego, why couldn't you text me to say fill in this form or be part of this submission? And I know that, cheers. And I know that 760 is actually, that's a phenomenal number, because FOGO only attracted 845, and the officers were saying that's really impressive because half of that, which was 20%, came from direct marketing. So I wonder where this information comes from, and I think council should utilise the text messaging a bit better to get a more robust feedback from people. And then very quickly, sorry, I'm going down. Is council working with the Animal Welfare Victoria in regards to the cat management strategy? Because I just recently filled out a survey from them, and it was very, very inclusive.
We do communicate with the Cat Protection Society quite regularly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, just a quick question to the Probate Officer. Is this not going out for discussion?
Yes.
Or approving tonight?
Yes. Our second speaker is Dr. John Watson. Walton. Oh, sorry, John. That's all right. Who will address in speaking against the record.
Are you right? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just better fill you in who I am and where I've come from. I've been a vet in this area for 35 years. I'm now retired, so I haven't got an axe to grind really as much as I used to have. But basically, and also I was a contributor to the conservation strategy for the old city of Heidelberg, particularly on the area which is my expertise, if you like, and a couple of other committees as well. Dogs have provided companionship and protection for human beings for thousands of years. Look at your Aboriginal community for a start. They have had them for apparently 65,000 years, perhaps a little less. But we are increasingly living in apartments and homes with smaller gardens, and open spaces are becoming increasingly more valuable to these people. Parks have to serve our community in different ways for organised sports, children's play areas, and for different leisure activities such as picnics and dog exercising. We need to use common sense and respect between individuals and organisations in communities to share these very valuable assets, possibly by providing time slots. I often exercise my dogs in the early morning because they wake me up at 7 o'clock or earlier very often, so I get in the car. Sometimes I even have to take a torch with me. But basically, there's no one else there but the odd dog walker and the odd jogger. And as long as you're in daylight, you can see where they poop, and you always carry your bags with you. Okay, young dogs need puppy classes and then go on to training on a leash, on and off a leash. And let's remember that dog training is really the training for the owners. In urban areas, parks and beaches are the only places really where we can do this sort of off-leash training. 10 plus kilometres of dog walking would be necessary for my dogs to keep them fit and well and behave better. I can give them that throwing a ball in half an hour. This is why it's important to have off-leash areas. This vigorous exercise can be provided at times that the parks are not being used for sports, and this provides dogs with fitness, better relationships with people and other dogs, and controls behaviour issues like excessive barking due to boredom, aggression and fear due to the fact that you're socialising them with other dogs and people. So I can just summarise by saying that dog owners must be responsible for picking up their own dog's poop, controlling their dogs. If they are unable to control their dogs off a leash verbally, then they need to be on leashes. Now, which side of the argument am I on? I'm in the middle. And I would say, and I'm sorry to go over, but I would say also that there's a very good model in Windy Park, Essendon, where the dog walkers all are on WhatsApp and they communicate with the sports people, and when it's being used for sport, it goes out on their WhatsApp and they don't go, and they find out the time which is convenient for them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry I went over.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Les. Our next speaker is John McCaffrey. Well, McCaffrey, sorry.
My name's John McCaffrey. I only want to speak to the one element, which is Clause 5, the proposal to ban dogs from all playing fields. To a group of people with a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Even proposing that dogs are going to be prohibited on the surface of all playing fields is just going to be crazy. It's going to be unenforceable over the long term, only diminishes the council's authority. I can believe that there are dog droppings, upsetting players and other playing field users, but surely a simpler and more workable solution will be installing or increasing the number of waste bag facilities and collection bins. The Ivanhoe football ground in Lower Heidelberg Road, for example, doesn't have a single one of either. And the other playing fields are sorely lacking, even when there are 1 or 2 dog posts available. And of course, there should be signs posted everywhere that people not cleaning up dog waste could be fined, maybe severely. I think that's got a higher chance of succeeding. We don't need to argue why dogs are a necessary pet for many people. It could be comfort or companionship. They're certainly wonderful for security. You don't have to ask too many people to find policemen to find out that houses with dogs are less likely to be burgled. So we're not going to eliminate or even reduce the number of dogs. There are some young and not so young, fit and not so fit people who can walk the pavements or even jog or perhaps ride along with their dogs. But many dog owners are elderly and or physically challenged and with all the best intentions cannot possibly exercise their dogs enough. Walking dogs along a footpath is okay for maybe their fitness, although as Dr. Walton has said, it doesn't achieve as much as on a playing field, but it certainly doesn't help their socialisation. You only have to see the large number of elderly people watching their dogs happily interact on a playing field to realise it's not just the dogs who are socialising. For some people, it's their only way of meeting other people, unfortunately. Finally, I don't believe the council is going to commit to the necessary number of dog parks that will be required. Judging by the pitiful condition of the Ford Park Dog Park, which I'm glad to hear is going to be refreshed at some point, I think it's also safe to assume that council doesn't want to be involved in ongoing maintenance. So I strongly urge you not to ban dogs on playing fields. Thank you.
Our next request is a written statement from Jane Morton and will be read out by Jo Wilson. Thank you, Jo. She is speaking against the recommendations as well.
Thank you. My name is Jane Morton. I live in East Ivanhoe and I have lived in Banyule for nearly 29 years. I wish to talk about the public order review into dogs and cats in public places. Dogs are a very important part of people's lives and there is evidence to suggest that dogs provide humans with emotional and physical health benefits. Many dogs live in apartments, a trend that will continue given the push for higher density living in our suburbs. Dogs require regular off-leash exercise. People cannot walk them as far as they need to be walked. They need to run 10 times more than us. If dogs don't get exercised enough, then there will be problems, including the dog's health, boredom, aggression, barking and destructive behaviour. I therefore have problems with what has been proposed by council. 4 off-lead parks are not enough for 13,000 dogs. Most people have to drive there, resulting in more pollution, traffic and parking problems. The dogs won't get the exercise they need. The parks will be overcrowded, resulting in more behavioural problems and hygiene issues. The 15-metre recall rule will mean that owners can't even throw their dogs a ball any more than 15 metres. What the council should do, encourage responsible ownership by providing dog bags in parks like they do at beaches, provide community education regarding how to socialise and train their dogs. This could be given out when people register their animals. It is a minority of dogs that cause problems. Please do not penalise responsible dog owners and their dogs.
Thank you, Jo. Our next written statement is from Jessica Cameron and will be read out by Darren Bennett. Thank you, Darren.
I would like to show my support for the below agenda item. Prohibit dogs on all sporting surfaces and dogs must be on leash. I've written to council many times about concerns around this issue. Sporting grounds should be used for their intended purpose. I've volunteered in the community sporting clubs for many years, and we spend so much time inspecting grounds for dog poo and areas that have been dug up before every sporting event. It's unhygienic and dangerous. When there's a dog park next to some grounds, it should be a no-brainer that dogs are only allowed to run free in the dog park. Ford Park in particular has been overtaken by dogs on the field. Owners are irresponsible and let dogs run in front of children, do not pick up after their dog and refuse to use the dog park provided. I strongly urge Council to ensure the safety of all sporting participants and prohibit dogs from these areas.
Jessica Cameron was the submitter for that statement. The next... No, sorry. A written statement will be read on Laurie Zoran's behalf by Mark Giulio. Thank you, Mark.
Well, I support the proposal going out to consultation. I and other residents request a longer and more extensive consultation process for the following reason. The proposal includes sections about dog access in public areas, including in 6.1 for this meeting's papers on page 80, option 5. There it is proposed that dogs be prohibited on the surface of all playing fields. As a responsible dog owner who always cleans up after their dog and who connects with many similarly responsible dog owners within our community on ovals and sporting reserves, such a change would represent a massive shift on the way we connect and enjoy the public spaces of Banyule, and this would have a serious impact on us as citizens. For me and other local residents, the ovals are a focal point of our community, and their relationships have developed over years from meeting each other when out with our dogs are critical to our well-being and everyday lives. Given this, the proposed consultation period seems for the proposal very short, and I, along with many other residents who use the ovals in Heidelberg West, request that Council consider a longer and more extensive consultation period for this proposal. We also have real concerns with option 2, increased prohibited clearance distance from 5 to 15 at playgrounds and barbecue areas. Does this mean on-leash or off-leash? Ovals in Heidelberg West are very near the playgrounds and barbecue areas, and so this requires clarification and discussion, again, over what we believe should be longer and broader consultation process. Thank you for considering my request to have this discussed this evening.
Thank you. Our next submitter is Julian Hart from the Ford Park Dog Owners Club. Welcome, Julian.
Our group strongly objects to 2 proposals on today's agenda, that dogs are to be prohibited from all playing fields and that dogs must be kept 15 metres away from playgrounds and barbecue areas. Our group's been lobbying for over 4 years to have a suitable space for our dogs to run off lead since Ford Park Dog Park has fallen into a state of disrepair. The park is currently a desolate dust bowl full of mosquitoes and dead sticks where both the owner and dog leave covered in dirt just from walking through. In winter, it's the opposite. When it rains, the drains block and the park floods. The council performs minimal to zero upkeep, and as a result, the park is neither a usable nor pleasant space. The council promised the park patrons an upgrade some 3 years ago, setting aside $50,000 in the budget, and we're yet to see one single improvement. In fact, the North East Link upgrade took out a significant chunk of the dog park's area by installing 2 large water tanks, and despite our protests, we were not ever compensated for this severe reduction of our usable space. The proposed dog park upgrade has stalled many times and has since been halted indefinitely with the recent discovery of asbestos in the park. Having access to the Ford Park grounds in lieu of no alternative viable space has allowed our happy community to flourish with somewhat limited access to the oval, but contributing to a wonderful community spirit where dog owners and dogs can come regularly to socialise. For some of us, it is the brightest spot of our day. As dog owners, we also want to keep the space clean and safe for the whole community. We all hold each other to account to stop dogs digging at the first sign and to clean up after them. Banning our dogs from the oval grounds penalises the most respectful and responsible dog owners because of the few that do not adhere to the rules, when some simple changes by council could improve the facilities for everyone. Instead of limiting access to sport grounds for dog owners, council should be proactively seeking solutions to make the experience better for all users. Just in relation to the 15 metres keeping away from the playground and barbecue areas, that would mean our dog can't even be walked completely around the track at Ford Park, even on the lead, which unfairly limits our use of the facilities even further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker is Michelle Jarvis, Friends of Banyule. Welcome again, Michelle.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not Friends of Banyule. This discussion paper is probably long overdue with regard to pet ownership, and I do support the need for review and responsible management of our pet cats and dogs. I 100% support the objectives to control off-lead dogs and free-roaming cats, which should be contained on private property 24 hours a day, and the nighttime cat curfew. However, the item that I do take issue with is key issue number 5, which states that dogs are prohibited on the surface of all playing fields. This loss is excessive, heavy-handed and discriminatory when we have insufficient open space to cater for the increase in population, housing density and growing pet numbers. Such a ban would mean that dog walkers are banned from such safe and favourite sports areas such as Charlesworth Park, Heidelberg Park, Warringal Park, Parkington Flat, Montmorency Park and even Petrie Park, the very location of Council's very successful Echo Festival, where a pet show was conducted and dogs on leash were very welcome to attend, and Council thoughtfully provided dog watering and dog swimming pools, which was used. What is required is education for responsible dog ownership to ensure a change in behaviours so that all poop is collected and disposed of properly, provision of more dog poop bins as they are absent from many of Council's facilities and ovals, and I reiterate, responsible dog walkers have just as much of a right to enjoy the grass sports ovals and surrounds as any other user, and to punish all for the thoughtless actions of a few is draconian and unwarranted. The public order review should be about education and assistance to change behaviour of a recalcitrant few. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. It was a wonderful day yesterday. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor De Pasquale.
Mayor, yes, I do have a question to the appropriate officer, and I can take this on notice as well, or they can take it on notice. Are there any other councils that prohibit dogs from being on sporting ovals?
Thank you, Councillor De Pasquale, and through you, Mayor. Yes, there are other councils that do ban dogs from sporting surfaces. There's a range of limitations. Some ban certain levels of playing surface depending on the grade that the ground is constructed to. So if it's a very high quality standard or artificial ground, they'll often be banned for damage to the surface. In others, they're banned at certain periods of time when play occurs. And in others, they're restricted to being on the lead when they're on the playing surface and can be off lead when they're not on the playing surface. So a whole range of different management techniques that are used.
Further questions? Look for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor McKern. Do you want to move an amendment?
Good. I'd like to thank every speaker this evening who has spoken quite passionately about their thoughts.
Can you move the motion first, please, Councillor McKern? Can you read it out, please?
Yep, happy to move the motion.
Can you read out the amendments, please?
That point 1, Council endorsed the discussion paper for public exhibition and consultation from the 21st of March 2024 to the 2nd of May 2024, with an amendment in the discussion paper that replaces references to prohibiting of dogs on playing fields to consider the management of dogs on playing fields. Point 2, note that the community consultation will include 3 in-person sessions at Belfield Community Hub, Greensborough Service Centre and Ivanhoe Library and Cultural Hub, an online survey on shaping Banyule. Point 3, receive a further report in July 2024 to consider the consultation feedback and present Council with a proposed public order for cats and dogs for consideration and adoption. Point 4, advocate to the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, DECA, to adopt a coordinated approach in the management of domestic cats across Victoria. That point stands per the officer recommendation. And point 5, an additional point that Council endorses further community consultation on the public order review to include a random survey of 2,000 properties across Banyule.
Move, Councillor McKern. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Garotti. Councillor McKern.
Excuse me, sorry. I think that's a really good point. But, through you, Mayor, a suggestion's been made by a fellow councillor that we foreshadow or we amend this motion to include an extended consultation period from additional 2 weeks, Councillor Di Pasquale? Yep, I'm happy with that.
We need to be
Happy with
mindful if we extend it too late and we expect a report back by July, it's going to be very difficult for staff to achieve that.
Through you, Mayor, I'd certainly be confident about a July date for a report with the current timeframes, but if we extend the period for submissions and we receive a lot of submissions later in the exhibition period, we probably wouldn't meet the July timeframe, so we would probably have to bring that back to August.
Would be sufficient. Through you, Mayor, would that be sufficient time for us as a sitting council in this term, do you think, to make a decision?
I think it would be, but I think if we leave the current end of the consultation, we can still consider late submissions even after we start finalising the report to meet the July deadline. So I think we'll leave it as is. But
leave it as is in July.
We will still consider late submissions right up until the report is presented to Council in July.
So that means we leave it as it stands, but we will consider, should we include that in an amended version, that we'll consider late submissions?
I think that's a general practice of all council consultation.
It's just that it's unclear, Mayor, to our community.
Well, we're stating here that, well, we need to have a date where consultation, as with the state government, you know, we need to have a date so people know when they make their submissions, otherwise we can't finalise our reports.
Okay, so we leave it as it stands.
And I think, councillors, with the inclusion of point 5, with the amended motion, it actually means that we're drawing more people into the consultation period.
Okay, so it looks like we're leaving it as it stands, Councillor Di Pasquale, but taking late submissions. Okay, all right, good. I'm glad that you're happy. Can we move on? All right. Moving right along, I'd like to thank every speaker who spoke tonight passionately and you've all done quite a bit of research, so thank you. And just as you've heard the informal discussion here in the chamber, we will take late submissions beyond the closing date. So that is, in essence, we'll see an extension of the consultation period. Just a bit of context, this public order is a requirement of our adopted domestic animal management plan. It also absorbs a notice of motion endorsed by this council in February requesting a report in relation to domestic cat controls, which has come up as an issue in our biodiversity plan and the development of a new biodiversity plan. It is an objective to control domestic animals, particularly cats, because of, one, the effect they have on our wildlife and our biodiversity, but also because of the effect on cats themselves and a marked reduction in the lifespan of cats that roam free. And as the Mayor pointed out earlier, this is supported by the Cat Protection Society in Greensborough in terms of cat confinement controls. This public order is about the enforceable conditions for management of cats and dogs. And this report actually seeks council endorsement for public consultation on a discussion paper whose key issues relate to off-lead dogs and free-roaming cats. Tonight's speakers have really emphasised a concern in relation to dogs. And it should be noted that it is a draft discussion paper for consultation, so we look forward to more formal submissions from our community. It does identify a number of options for consideration, and we've heard tonight issues particularly with the call-in times and 0.5 dogs on playing fields. And it's understood that matters concerning our domestic pets are often held dear by Banyule residents, and that we need to be careful as to how we word the discussion paper and also how we consult with our community. To this end, the amendments in the tan print reflect some of those concerns. We have changed the wording from no dogs on playing fields to management, with respect to an understanding of some of the issues dogs do create on playing fields, such as defecation, and that's been pointed out by our speakers. So we are open to hearing what our community has to say, and we welcome your submissions. We've also added in another consultation session at Ivanhoe Library, and we want a report back in this term of council, which is why we're calling for July. I hope that's useful for all the speakers here tonight. Please feel free to continue to speak to your fellow councillors about this issue. Thank you, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I will speak. Look, I'm very grateful, to be honest, that we have had a number of residents email councillors over the weekend and today, and a number of residents front up here and talk and to express concerns, particularly regarding the proposed ban of dogs that was going to go out in the discussion paper. My initial feedback certainly was that that might have been taking things too far. And I think, yeah, very happy that Councillor McKern shared similar views and came to the group and said, well, look, what are we really looking to achieve here? Really looking to achieve possibly a better management approach. But I know that in my neck of the woods, around Bundoora and Binnack Park, you know, we've gotten to a point where things work relatively well there, and the clubs are able to enjoy Binnack Park. And the community, it's a community asset at the end of the day. And the community live in that area. They're the ones that pay the rates. They're the ones that support the community. And it's, you know, it's just, from my perspective, it's an entitlement. It's a right to be able to utilise that reserve and to be able to participate in it and to do so safely and practically. And what we're looking to do with this review now is perhaps maybe just bring in some controls, maybe around dogs near playgrounds and on shopping strips and the like. But when I first saw that, and it came out in the public papers that we're looking at bans on dogs, I was deeply concerned, to be honest. And I thought deeply, deeply concerned. And all I can say to people here and through our community is keep having your say, keep putting it forward so that the people that are sitting here, the 9 of us, can hear that feedback, and the officers that are doing the work and preparing reports can hear as well. because ultimately this is coming back to this chamber and we're hearing you, and I'm not going to be standing for bans, outright bans on dogs in our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Dimiros.
Thank you, Mayor. So a question to the officer. Working. Oh, sorry, thank you. It was the other one that was on. There you go, wrong button. So again, asking the appropriate officer, through you, Mayor, that in managing dogs on a playing field, would a ban be considered? Because just to add further to that, and I'll follow up with the second question. Sorry.
Would the appropriate officer like to respond to that question?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I guess the rewording removes the position of prohibition on playing surfaces as an option. Moving back to the management of dogs on playing fields, managing does suggest that that could restrict movement. It doesn't necessarily talk to prohibition as the only management technique, but it wouldn't preclude prohibition from being an outcome that you could achieve. Yeah.
So then my second follow-up question, which will probably be to the mover, is to actually put back the prohibition of dogs on playing surfaces. As this is a discussion paper, I would hate to think that it is looked over by the community because of the wording, and a ban still can be implemented as a management process.
I think it does that with the word management, because that is something that...
I'll be asking the mover if she would consider putting it back to what it was as wording, so that it doesn't potentially be seen overlooked by the community.
Would the mover, Councillor McKeon, did you understand the question from Councillor?
There is a motion before us which has been discussed by the majority of the councillor group who were present. I might just point out what the definition of management is. It's the process of dealing with or controlling things or people. So the word management was specifically selected because it is a flexible, broad scope term, and it's not as definitive as prohibition. So I think that it stands as a suitable term and a suitable alternative to what was the officer's recommendation. And I see a lot of head nodding in the gallery. And
can you respond to the question?
Response. In other words, with all due respect, Councillor Dimiros, I won't accept any further amendments to this motion with respect to including prohibition back on the table for us to consider.
Thank you, Alida. So I just have my comments. 2 minutes, I guess. 2 minutes? It was questions. Just quickly, so I won't be supporting this due to that amendment, but I will foreshadow an amendment after this if this doesn't go ahead without that number 1 change and the rest being changed, happily. Just because this is a discussion paper, I'd hate to think that councillors change the narrative of it going to the public for discussion. I would hate to think that people in the community may not even look at this, because prohibition is probably one of the words that you have all noticed and have actually come to discuss. In the sense of management, a lot of people in the community might just say, oh, management, okay, it doesn't sound too bad. And I'd hate just to think that that could be silencing anyone in my community. So for that purpose, I won't be supporting this.
Thank you. Other further comments? Councillor Costello.
Yeah, dogs and cats are an important part of many people's lives, like children are for other families. While I don't have any cats or dogs, we do dog sit on occasions, so I have experienced a little bit. But look, there's a lot of people with different views on this subject matter, and it's really important that we do go out to the broader community and hear all those different views. I think item part 5 there speaks to just ensuring we actually hear. We don't want to just respond to any particular group, but hear the views of everyone and have a balanced true perspective of our broader community. And I think thank all of those that did come in tonight that care deeply about their dogs. Do participate in this process. I know I'm out there in the parks and I see a lot of people really enjoying their dogs. Others are doing it in different ways, and we've got to find a safe way that everyone feel comfortable. And that is a very difficult situation when there's such different views sometimes. So we look forward to this consultation. It did have the highest number of community participants on Shaping Banyule ever. So this is important, and this motion tonight that I'm supportive of just tries to do its best to hear those views in our community. So I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Champion.
Thanks, Mayor. Tonight we're just endorsing a discussion paper, which is kind of similar to accepting a petition. So those of you who spoke this evening, we appreciate your time. We expect you to include that when you go to Shaping Banyule or you go to one of the pop-up sessions, to please say that, express that, so our officers know officially where you stand. As a crazy cat lady, my understanding of owning a cat is that you bring the cat inside your home before dark, just before dark, and then if it wants to go out in the morning, you let it out in daylight. So it is out in daylight, it is in the dark, inside your home for safety for the cat, but also safety for our local wildlife. I actually assumed that was one of our policies, and I learnt very recently it's not. So I might just pop that in as well as some feedback. What is really obvious, we love our pets. They are part of our family, they are part of our home, they are very special. We invest a lot of our income on them for a variety of reasons. Vet bills is one of the things I'm thinking of especially. And they also provide us with great joy and contentment and peace. So we are attempting to create a policy that allows harmony with our pets, care for our pets, as well as our best health as well. So please, those of you who are in live stream land, please write. Please let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you, and those of you who came today, please also make sure you include your feedback. Thank you very much. I will continue this comment in the general business items later. Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Neely.
Just quickly, I look forward to the consultation on this, and it's also good that we've got it at 3 different sessions, so thank you, Councillor McKern. The extra consultation through the random survey was also going to inform us even more, so we look forward to you participating in these consultations. Thanks.
Thank you. Right, a reply, Councillor McKern. Councillor De Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, if I may make a couple of comments. I'm a bit disappointed we haven't heard from as many cat owners tonight, because I think we should have. The potential for cat owners, because this needs to go out there, I think this is going to blow up now. I think this is going to go all over Facebook and Instagram, and we're going to have so many respondents on the Shaping Banyule. So let's get that link out there and send it to all your friends and family. If the extension of the exhibition and consultation time leaves that July date a little late, it's probably appropriate to keep it tighter. So I'm agreeable with that. But the potential for cats is possibly 24-hour confinement. So no outside during the day unless it's a pen that is out. So this is something that the community need to understand as well. With regards to this public order, I would like to see that this public order moves into the potential that we have a Banyule strategy once and for all. Far too many strategies are just copy other councils, just follow the state government, whatever's handed down. Let's just do the easy thing and write the paper up the way that it needs to be written up. Whereas in the past, the history of Banyule has been, what do we want to see as a community? How do we want to run our community? Forget about other councils. What do we want to do here in Banyule? And traditionally, all our policies were Banyule bred. Over the last number of years, we've gotten away from that, and we seem to be just copying what other people are doing. So I'd like to see that come with regards to these new public orders coming up. With regards to the funding, point 5, there is a financial obligation there possibly, but I've done some numbers with regards to if we've got 13,000 odd dogs in the municipality, the average registration fee is about $85. That's the average. So that across 13,000 is $1.1 million. So it's quite a big revenue stream. So I think we've got it. I think we should have it in the budget to spend a few $1,000s to get that out, and we should be comfortable about that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put that on. Councillor Mitchell, gosh, you'd like to speak?
Sorry, just briefly, because there's been a lot said already. I also look forward to the consultation. I have a pet cavoodle myself, and I see there's a lot of very loving pet owners here. So it's great to see. Yeah, look, my dog's blind, so she's always on a lead. And one thing for me is important is that, I suppose, is that people respect other people's pets, because when another dog runs up towards her, she's blind, she can't see it, it freaks her out. And, you know, but I wish she was a dog that could see, so she could run around and be in the parks and the sports pavilions as well. So, yeah, but I look forward to this consultation and everyone getting involved. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll put that on Councillor McKern.
Yes, thank you.
Right,
thank you, Mayor.
sorry.
Firstly, I'd like to thank all of our councillors for a robust debate. It's a real reflection that our councillor group is in touch with the level of community concern about this matter. As Councillor Castaldo pointed out, we do need to hear everyone's views and balance perspectives, which is why we changed the motion in relation to point 5. It is the responsibility of councillors, Mayor, to reflect the views of our community, and in so doing, sometimes that means challenging officer recommendations. And that's what's happened today in terms of some of the points. That's our job. On cats, I just want to inform you that 27 councils across Victoria have now adopted a cat confinement policy, so it's no newsbreaker. And the most common policies have been around either 24-hour confinement, which Councillor Di Pasquale has pointed out, but dusk to dawn confinement has also been a popular choice. But also has, as the good Councillor Di Pasquale mentioned, there are different ways, and we need to adopt an enforcement policy that's right for Banyule. And I hope, Mayor, that through this consultation and the active involvement of both our community and our councillors, that we will find the right balance for this council. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. We'll move on to item 6.2, pedestrian and cycle safety advocacy and proactive traffic management planning in the northeast of Banyule. There is
a question.
Oh, thank you very much. Bye. Maybe we should have put that item a bit further forward on the agenda. Thank you, everybody. Did someone...
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Neely.
Just wanted to know if any progress has been made on the bicycle pedestrian crossing over Plenty River near Railway Road. Has any progress been made on that advocacy piece?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Council is seeking a $200,000 funding partner, preferably for the state government. to jointly fund the construction of a bridge over the Plenty River near Railway Road, Briar Hill. At the moment, we're pursuing approval from Melbourne Water to determine their specific requirements, and once funding is secured, we'd look to do a detailed design and construction. So at this stage, we're effectively assessing the preliminary design and the requirements that would be in place for a bridge to be provided to make sure we understand the full scope of works, and then we hope to achieve that support with funding from the state government if they'll come and partner with us.
Further questions?
No, just move in an amendment.
Would you like to read out your amendment, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The first 5 points to the motion as is. Amendment 6, to undertake a community survey to identify locations where improvements are needed to walking and cycling infrastructure, with the aim of assisting council with its advocacy efforts with the state government and identifying future capital works. And point 7, write to the Honourable Gabrielle Williams MP, Minister for Public and Active Transport, to request a meeting to discuss the following active transport concerns: the cancellation of the pedestrian crossing at Yarra Street, the removal of the off-road path in Greensborough Road during North East Link construction and the inadequate detour, the Para Road pedestrian bridge as part of the Greensborough to Montmorency rail project, Banyul's low cycling and pedestrian rates and how we achieve the 25% rates by 2030, issues around the North East Link active transport plans, and Diamond Creek Road pedestrian safety concerns. So moved.
Move, Councillor Neely. I will second that motion. Thank you. Comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Malikan for point 7. I only came up with point 6. I'm glad that the advocacy project list includes the Greensborough bypass and Diamond Creek Road improvements and the grade separation of Civic Drive roundabout. I am worried, though, about the increase in traffic. As the report said, 10,000 vehicles a day on the Greensborough bypass between Diamond Creek and Civic Drive intersection and the North East Link M80 intersection, as well as an extra 4,000 vehicles a day on Watsonia Road. So managing this is so important. Additionally, taking multi-unit developments in areas without public transport is really important. Taking into account new businesses and infrastructure like the proposed or the community hospital that's just on the border of Banyul is important. So this is about, for me, continuing to advocate for improved transport infrastructure and services. It is also about having the point 6 current and reliable data that will inform council to make improvements and increase our advocacy efforts, because whenever council goes to meet with state government, they ask for data, so we will give data. And we want to encourage all residents of all ages to be active, and I think that this is really important in enabling that. It's not just about young families moving safely about the area. We've also had a lot of feedback from our older residents that don't, feel safe crossing roads. So this is a passionate thing of mine at the moment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Castaldo.
I'm supportive of this motion, but particularly like the items 6 and 7 that draw attention to some of the very important things that are lacking in the southern part of Banyul, including the Yarra Street crossing, which was funded and was withdrawn. A very important piece of public infrastructure that we need to head towards that 30% sustainable transport target that the state government set. And if we're not actively working on a number of these areas, there's no way we can reach that in Banyul, because it's going backwards, if anything. So very supportive of the motion, and thank both the mover and the amendments made. I can see your fingerprints all over that, Tom. Thank you.
Further comments? Councillor De Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a couple of comments. It seems to me that because the North East Link is going in and the M80 is being constructed or starting construction as well, it's almost as if the preceding 5 to 10 years the roads have just left, roads particularly have been left into disrepair. Bike paths and pedestrian pathways have just been left. I'm talking about the Ring Road, I'm talking about Civic Drive roundabout, I'm talking going into Diamond Creek. I mean, that is Nillumbik, but that is our border, and we should be taking pride in that. So I fully commend and agree to point 6 and 7. We do need to be having conversations around these. It's just striking, Mayor, that, and you'll probably comment on it, but we are having Ride to School Day on Friday. I'm sure you'll comment about that. And it's like my daughter came to me and said, "Oh, Dad, I would like to ride to school on Friday." And it's like, I basically take that road twice a day to get to work and home, and the amount of cars and congestion and just craziness that happens around the intersections. I do thank our school crossing supervisors, because they are doing an amazing job in the face of trucks and all sorts of major congestion issues. So this is quite an important one tonight. So I'm happy to vote on this motion tonight, and if we could be kept updated with regards to these conversations and how they go. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Champion.
Thanks, Mayor. Again, earlier this evening, we had a vibrant conversation about advocacy and what was missing for our Citizen of the Year, and she gave us some answers. We are continuing to advocate on behalf of our community, a different theme this time. Looking at one of the last points in point 7, our cycling rates and pedestrian rates are probably low because our residents don't feel safe cycling on paths and areas that should be for cyclists and pedestrians. If you build it, they will come. They will come if it is safe. I will support this. It's a no-brainer. It is something our community wants and needs. And again, we will continue to advocate on behalf of our community. Our concern is, are we going to be heard?
Thank you. I'll just make a few comments here. It did concern me greatly when, after 7 years, we finally had the department agreed to come out and talk to this council about active transport issues. And they talked about their 25% of all trips by walking and cycling by 2030. And when asked what the current rates in Banyule were, they didn't know. And asked how they were wanting to achieve the stated outcome of the state government. They had no plan and they had no process and they had no idea. And as it's been previously mentioned, we're going backwards in Banyule. It's becoming less safe. And I look at the off-road path in Greensborough Road, which was very popular, which this council paid for. It's been destroyed and taken away, and the department's created an alternative that doesn't provide a safe route, doesn't provide a practical route, and no one uses, but they won't do anything about it. So I'll support this tonight, but it is incredibly frustrating. I'll put that, all those in favour. That is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 6.3, Planning and Building Activity Reports, July to December 2023. There is one speaker speaking against it, Alicia Curry. You have 2 minutes, Alicia.
Hi again. Bit irrelevant if I speak for or against, I think, because the report is there. But I would like to make some suggestions on how the report can become a bit more meaningful. And either you can defer tonight and add this information if it's available, or you can add it into the next one. But I'd be very interested to see some of these additional items. So firstly, you talk about the number of permits, but we don't talk about the number of dwellings. And I wonder whether the average number of dwellings per application has increased, which seems to be reflected in the number of objectors applying through VCAT, which has doubled. And that suggests that perhaps there's more intense development being requested and therefore more objectors at VCAT. Secondly, how many permits, and particularly for housing developments, remain unacted on? It's very important for us to know how many are in the pipeline, whether there's land banking going on. We know there's a number of very large developments which we've yet to see activated on the land. How many permits have received extensions from council, and how long have those extensions been going on? It seems to be a relatively insignificant process to get any application extended, and I think that needs to stop, and that would help those people the developers that have permits get moving, get it acted upon, get it out there. So those extensions are prohibitive to that, and I may request a couple of extra seconds to get through the list. Also, I'd be interested in the number of tree removals. So you've said that the application for tree removal has gone down, but not stating what the number of trees was per application. And if the developments are bigger, potentially so is the tree removal. So I'd be interested in those numbers. I'd also be interested in the number of dwellings which are in the pipeline and how many of those have been allocated to affordable dwellings. Now, particularly in this time when we're talking about the housing crisis, how many dwellings have we got going to those needy people? And then on top of that, is council advocating to get the funding back into that homelessness that I believe Jacinta Allen is talking about removing? And council needs to get acting on that as well. And then lastly, what are the state-driven developments which are in the pipeline, also part of our planning applications, and such as the Ivanhoe water tank, which was due out in October last year, which we haven't seen as yet, no update to that, and what is happening with the Belbardia site. This is years in delay, very, very important site, and yet to be acted on. So I'd be interested if council can defer and get some extra information, or whether we can see it in the next report. Thank you.
Thank you. Would Councillor Swan, Natasha Swan, would you like to comment to a few of those? Because I know we have been presented with some of that information.
Was there something in particular that you... That was a long list.
The number of inactive...
Oh, inactive permits, I can certainly speak to that. We recently provided data to the MAV as part of a survey of all Victorian councils, and over the 5-year period, you're right, there are a number of permits that have not yet been acted on. When we compiled that data, we worked out there was around 4,015 dwelling permits that remained active and that have received an extension of time also. So they're not just permits that were issued in very recent times, but they're permits that remain active through that extension process. So we would agree wholeheartedly that there's a large number of approvals out there, but not a lot of building activity demonstrating delivery of those dwellings.
Alicia, if you could put those questions in writing to Natasha, we could ensure that the ones where possible would be included in the next report. No, I don't. The next report, I think, will be more appropriate. Councillor McKern.
Firstly, thank you to the Speaker for pointing out probably more so than the questions themselves in respect to what I've taken in from the presentation, is what I see there as a blending of provision of information that covers not only the statutory planning requirements, but how they actually interact with strategic planning. I mean, when we're looking for number of trees
Councillor
removed...
McKern, are you speaking or you've got a question?
Yes, I have, but I need to present the context, if that's okay, Mayor. And the number of permits in relation to dwellings and how that influences dwellings, is that possible that we actually request that information? Because it's an application of the statutory information to our strategic outcomes. So can we look at combining or blending that information in the provision of future data in these planning reports?
Sorry, I'm not quite understanding what the blending of which information.
Because well, for example, what I heard from the Speaker is not just knowing about the number of permits that have either been approved or not approved, but what the implications are about the number of dwellings that are approved and therefore built.
I guess if I'm thinking through the question, the purpose of the report is to report on the activities of the various business units and the volume of permit applications and the processing of decisions that occurs through the department. It's not necessarily a strategic assessment of the outcome of that. That work is then caught up in our strategic planning review work that we're doing through our housing strategy. So it's not something that this report turns its mind to. The purpose of this report is more around the accountability of activity trends and costs of delivery of service.
So it's the metrics that you're concerned with here, more so than what the metrics mean in real terms on the ground, which is what I'm hearing there are sectors of the community that might be interested in.
Thank you. Any further questions? Look for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor McKern, seconded Councillor Champion.
Thanks again to our speaker. I think you've brought up some interesting points, and it's probably something we need to look deeper into, how we portray that information in a balanced way, because it makes sense. Planning functions are, of course, a fundamental service of council. It is therefore important that council receives regular updates on its planning functions. And it's important that we as a council understand the metrics, especially in the broader context of the Melbourne metropolitan area. So, for example, we have read that planning applications are down by 9.3%, and also that there's been a reduction in determination of planning applications within 60 days of the 60 statutory day period, which is state government defined. So 78% were determined within the 60 days, 22% weren't. Now, this actually means that when a decision isn't determined by council's planning staff, it then gets to go to VCAT for review. Through you, Mayor, I would like to just ascertain from the Director of City Services as to why 22% were not determined within the 60-day statutory period, as question number 1. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, obviously that's a large volume of applications, so I couldn't speak to the specifics of each application, but there are often a range of reasons an application might go greater than 60 days. Council officers would negotiate outcomes. Sometimes there are delays through the need for additional information or errors or omissions that are discovered from plans that need to be clarified before they can be finalised. I do note that during the 6-month period, whilst there were applications determined outside of time, nobody elected to exercise their right of review to seek the tribunal to be the ultimate decision maker for any of those applications. It's not uncommon for a certain percentage of applications to not be determined within statutory time, and certainly our percentage turnarounds are very competitive when looking at other metropolitan councils.
Thank you very much, Director. And just to finish up on Banyule BPI, Council's now received a number of reports about the losses by Banyule BPI, which is our building arm. $91,000 cost to Council in the past 6 months, 22% decrease in building permits. It seems to be a growing trend. My question to the Director of City Development is, or rather to comment on the future viability of Banyule BPI for the issuance of building permits, especially given that issuance of building permits in this day and age is largely the domain of the private sector. Is this an area that Council should remain in, or is it something that we should be looking to offload? Thank you.
Yeah, can I just raise a point of order? I think it's an appropriate conversation to have, but I don't think it's appropriate to be asking that in the public domain and putting our director on the spot, particularly where there may be staffing implications. Thank you, Mayor.
Can I ask the councillor to refrain from putting questions into the commentary part? Finish your commentary and then or ask your questions first and then have your commentary.
Can I still have an answer to any of that question then, just to report on Banyule BPI?
There's comments in the report. I think people can read that, and I think it would be inappropriate for the Director to make those comments now publicly. And you have 54 seconds remaining on your commentary time.
That's all I have to say. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? No further comments. I'll put that in the name of Councillor McKone. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to notices of motion, item 9.1, overgrown nature strips and impact on amenity and safety, moved by Councillor Gorotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Very happy to be moving this. This is what local government's about. These are the issues that we have presented to us. Oh, sorry, I should move and seek a seconder first.
That would be the usual. Seconded, Councillor Champion. Councillor Gorotti.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I was taking a leaf out of your book talking before things were moved. But this is the business of local government. So earlier this evening, we heard on other items. This is our core business. This is what we're elected to do and what we're paid to do, what we're paid to be here doing. This is a big issue certainly in the Grimshaw ward, but I know that it's an issue more broadly across the city. Just the lack of maintenance of properties, and particularly in regard, not always the case, but particularly in regard to those that are rented. I'm actually meeting with a local real estate agent on Wednesday, just to do a bit of a walk around with him around some graffiti issues and maintenance issues that he's identified in Bundoora. And it was interesting that his feedback was, as a real estate agent who manages a number of residential rental properties, that he wants council to be more active in this space and to be looking to enforce, because that would empower him and his real estate agency in dealing with the landlords. Because he said it's very, if council can put forward a notice, can take action, that empowers the sector to in turn take action. And one thing I've been enormously frustrated with in my time in council is that apparently we have these levers and mechanisms, but we don't seem to have the resourcing or officers to go out there and enforce. And I think this is core business. This is our city. This is how we present to our community, to our residents. This is how we present to one another. And unfortunately, we're not up to standard in certain areas. I'm disappointed in some ways that I've been on council for 10 years and haven't taken sufficient action. I've tried. We took up the Banyule Blitz last year, and unfortunately that was voted down with the mayor using a casting vote at the time. But again now, I'm going to try and put this forward to the council to get some resourcing, to get a report, to get some resourcing, and to take this issue. Yes, it's not a federal international issue that has got the headlines in the Age and local papers. Yes, it's not a state government issue. Yes, it's local. And yes, it's just to do with local roads and how a city presents. But this is what we're here for as council, to do the basics for our residents. And I'm really hoping for support and really looking forward to this report coming back. Thank you, Mayor.
Would the seconder like to speak?
I will. I'll support this for you, councillor. I'm a bit the same. I do believe also nature strips are the entrance to our properties, whether they are tenanted or owner-occupied, and they are the first thing that we see as we're driving past or we come and visit or we move into. I have a thing about, it's nice that a nature strip is mown, but you've got to do the edges as well. It's just not a done job until you finish your edges, and then maybe water it and fertilise it and it'll come up beautiful and green. So I fully support this notice of motion.
Further comments? Councillor Ms Nichols.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Gorotti for this notice of motion. I also have many requests come through from concerned residents in the Hordern ward about messy, overgrown properties and nature strips with trees overhanging from properties onto the footpath. And I receive a lot of emails about building sites too. But messy nature strips affect the residents in the street who take pride keeping their nature strips and their properties free from long grass and in a respectable state. So it'll be nice to see everything looking nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments?
Yep.
Councillor McKern? Councillor Castaldo.
Yeah, I also support this motion. This is one of the many things that our residents think are important, and I'm sick of putting in emails responding to residents complaining about a number of these footpath overgrown areas. There could be wildlife in there, and some of them, it's so large, some of these unkept areas on footpaths. So look, I think I'm fully supportive of this, and sometimes the importance of grandstanding could be even on any issue, and that's the opportunity of every councillor to do that if they so please.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor McKern.
We certainly heard quite a passionate statement from Councillor Garotti, who feels obviously quite strongly about the issue of overgrown nature strips. I'm supportive of this, Mayor, in relation to overgrown grass. Where I probably draw the line is the growing interest in planting out our nature strips with plantings other than grass. Now, we've had big discussions about this in the biodiversity working group, which has been working for the past year to build up a new biodiversity plan for this council. And biodiversity is an important part of our strategic vision that our community, you the community, have designed. The protection, the survival and enhancement of our environment. That is our biodiversity, the protection of living things. And given that our streets act as important corridors for wildlife, they are important infrastructure for the survival of our fauna and health of our biodiversity, I would not want this notice of motion to impact on the potential of a future policy that would make our nature strips more robust in terms of more opportunities for more diverse planting. And yes, sometimes biodiversity does look like organised chaos, but that is the nature of nature. It's not symmetric. So, with regards to overgrown grass, I'm supportive and I look forward to the officer's report, but I think we also need to be mindful of just where the lines are drawn in a potential report coming back to council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to general items of business. There are several general items of business. Would Councillor Meeks-Nicholas? I believe you have two.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. On Thursday night, I attended the Viewbank Preschool Welcome Barbecue, which welcomes all the new kinder families and obviously the ones that are already have already been there. This event brought back many memories of my time at the preschool with my three kids and being the fundraising coordinator there. It was so nice to see all the families socialising, the kids playing and listening to the music of Didgeridoo Australia. There were raffles being won and lots of sausages being eaten. I had a chat with the 4-year-old kinder teacher, Anne-Marie, and the Vice President there, Ronnie, who are currently working on ways the kinder can grow to be able to cope with the new government increased hours, which I believe are doubling in 2029, just to make sure they can keep up with it and don't obviously lose kids because they don't have the space for it. So it's really important for them. It's a wonderful kinder community with great educators and it's a great dedicated committee. And my other item was on Sunday, I had the honour of opening up the Viewbank Scout Hall. Glenn Crawford, who is the group leader, got in touch with me a few months after the 2020 elections, and he gave me, at that time, a tour of the hall explaining how they use it along with the jiu-jitsu and the fencing groups and what changes they'd like to see happen to make the space more user-friendly. After 3 years of many meetings, designs and many more meetings, we've now opened up the new hall, complete with an amazing deck, new bathrooms, a new shed to store all the equipment and their trailer, and use of new breakout rooms for the older scout groups. They also have new split system installed for the comfort of them during summer and winter, and of course they've got solar on the roofs. It now meets the needs of current and future Scouts and other community groups who may also share the space. It looks fantastic. The groups were so happy with the outcome, and I can't tell you how many times I was stopped by a leader, a child or a parent to say, thanks for helping us to get this completed. The kids now enter the hall with a smile on their face, and the kids are now happy to use the toilets and they don't hold off until they get home because they were actually that bad. A massive thanks go to the Banyule Capital Delivery and Sports and Recreational teams for all the help with this project and getting it completed. It looks fantastic and is now a real big asset for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Champion, you had an item of general business?
I have two, Mayor. Thank you. Yesterday was another warm one for Banyule's second EcoFest at Petrie Park in Montmorency. Lots of stall holders, lots of animal lovers, pet owners, lots of environment enthusiasts and locals out for the day enjoying some late summer sun and fun activities. Thank you to all the council officers for participating in and creating this popular event. There is a lot of planning that goes into this event, and I especially want to thank those officers we don't actually see or hear from at all, such as the transport team. They're involved in this as well. Congratulations to all our winners, and above all, thank you everyone for looking after your pets, making them part of your family, your school and our lives. It was a pleasure to see how well loved and well trained our fur babies are, as well as meet them. So I got some hugs and I got kisses and I got paw shakes, so I felt very privileged. Now, if you're considering adding a pet to your family, please choose an accredited adoption centre. There are many animals abandoned every year, especially at Christmas time, and they would love a home to belong to, so please consider an accredited adoption centre. Thank you to this community as well, specifically. Thank you for being cooperative with our officers, asking for responses to surveys throughout the day. I actually received feedback from our officers that many of you helped our team understand you better, and they appreciated your articulate, intelligent and well-considered insight. Now, I regularly comment that my community is very well educated, passionate, connected and interested, and our officers very much appreciated your contribution to our community, so thank you very, very much for your support. In addition to that, I had the privilege of being invited to 2 local schools in Sherborne this last month, in March, to share how council can support students' learning within the education curriculum. So I met with the Year 12 VCE vocational major students at Montmorency Secondary College to discuss with them how council can assist them with their Year 12 project moving forwards into their final assessments for their last year of school, as well as how council connects with and supports local business owners. I also met with Year 4 students at Montmorency South Primary School to help them understand some of the basics of the role of counsellors, how we connect with community, our responsibilities and challenges, and if we have another job. They especially wanted to learn about Banyule citizenship ceremonies, and they wanted to understand how important becoming an Australian citizen is to so many of our immigrant residents wanting to have a real sense of belonging here. So on both occasions, I met with cohorts on either a Thursday or a Friday afternoon after lunch. Despite this very challenging time for young people, they were very attentive, they were engaged, enthusiastic enough to ask lots of relevant questions and take on the additional information and support to enhance their learning experiences. So I wanted to thank the students for welcoming me and to the teachers for inviting me to contribute to their students' learning. Thank you to the council officers for providing appropriate and informative brochures for the students to take with them and read for further information. Definitely a collaborative effort. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Alison. Any further? Councillor McKern, you have Chelsworth Park Community Consultation Sessions.
Thank you, Mayor. Chelsworth Park community consultation is currently underway regarding the proposed redevelopment of the pavilions and the proposed amendments to the current lease of Chelsworth Park to Ivanhoe Grammar School. I attended 2 consultation sessions, one on Wednesday, which were also attended by the Mayor and Councillor Mitsonikos, and on Sunday. And I think it's important for residents to know that we have another consultation meeting this Thursday. It'll be online, and this Saturday at Chelsworth Park. Community submissions need to be received by the closing date of the 27th of March, which is coming up soon. So you can book for one of the 2 remaining community consultation sessions online. Just go to shapingbanyul.vic.gov.au/Chelsworth Park. You can also write to me and I'll submit your feedback happily and share it with fellow councillors. Also, Mayor, I just wanted to point out that we have an exciting Chelsworth community meeting coming up on Thursday the 18th of April at Ivanhoe Library, 6:15 for 6:30 p.m. start, allowing time for some refreshments and networking amongst local residents. This time we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to divide the session in 2 parts. Part 1 will be about brainstorming good ideas for Ivanhoe, and then our usual Part 2 Q&A panel, where you get to ask your questions on council matters to myself and senior staff who will be assisting me. And I'm going to thank our senior staff in advance because they do a great job in helping us councillors who want to run community meetings, especially to our CEO. Thank you very much for all the help you've given me over the past 3 years of running community meetings in Chelsworth. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other general items of business? I'll have one general item of business. It is with deep regret and sadness we acknowledge the passing of Fred Collins, OAM, at the age of 102. Fred was a very hard-working and popular person right across Banyule. I had the pleasure of attending his funeral, and it was a wonderful celebration of his life. He enlisted for the Second World War and was while overseas he was shot in the head, which he managed to survive. After returning to Australia and a long rehabilitation at the Repat Hospital, he went on to live a happy and very productive life. Fred had a wonderful, supportive wife and 4 fantastic children and many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. His real passion was the IRSL in Ivanhoe, where he was a member for 65 years and president for 50 years. He also served on the Victorian RSL board for many years, and up until his death he was still on the Weary Dunlop Foundation board. Over 60 years Fred would sell poppies for Remembrance Day at the city railway stations and raise many millions of dollars for legacy. He will be sadly missed. We'll move on to public questions. There are 5 public questions submitted. The only person in the room is Alicia Curry. Would you like to ask your question, Alicia?
I'm up here a lot tonight, so apologies. But okay, so the first question, I've got 2 questions on the board because I'm asking a question as a proxy for Pippa Griffiths. And the first question I'm asking on behalf of myself. What is the total number of dwellings that is either completed or permit approved to complete for the 3 school sites, being Hague Street Primary, Belfield Primary and Banksia Street Primary, on the land that Banyule Council originally acquired from the state government and then sold commercially for the decommissioned school sites, and how many of these have or will be allocated to affordable housing?
Natasha Swan, would you like to respond?
Thank you. For clarification purposes, officers were not able to locate Banksia Street Primary site mentioned, but we believe you may be referring to the Banksia Secondary College.
Sorry, yes, you're right. I think it might also be called La Trobe.
Banksia La Trobe Secondary College, yeah.
Yes, sorry.
After reviewing the 3 sites, a total of 582 dwellings have been approved, with 81 dwellings constructed at the Belfield Primary School site, 118 at the Hague Street Primary School site, 58 dwellings have already been constructed at the Banksia Secondary College site, and 383 are yet to be constructed. Of all the dwellings that have already been constructed, 58 are nominated as affordable housing located within the Launch Housing development. I probably should just add to that we're not aware of the status of the balance of the houses of the 383 yet to be constructed.
Okay, that's the Glenville site, is it?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
Got a second question.
You're only listed for one question.
Oh, she sent me an email saying she did. Has that changed? Okay. All right.
Thank you. No, I think one question's enough, thanks, Alicia. Well, the rules are you must be present in the room to ask the questions. Not on that, I don't think. We'll now move to closure of meeting. There is no confidential items tonight, so we'll close the meeting at 9:55. Thank you for your attendance. The next ordinary meeting of council will be the 8th of April. Thank you for your attendance.